Battle of Falkirk, how William Wallace defied the odds. Why did Wallace push his ragtag army of 3,000 men southward, leaving a trail of destruction that would shake England to its core? What did this legendary march leave behind? From smoldering towns to defiant raids, Wallace's journey was as fierce as it was unpredictable. And just when things seemed dire, how did this audacious raid help solidify his position as Scotland's true champion? Could this be the turning point that would change the fate of an entire nation? Or was it the beginning of something far greater? In this gripping tale, you'll discover the secrets behind Wallace's rise, the destruction left in his wake, and the momentous decisions that boosted his morale and united a nation in the fight for freedom. Stay with us as we reveal the shocking twists and jaw-dropping moments that led to the Battle of Falkirk, where Wallace's courage and wit would face its greatest test yet. The year is 1298, and Scotland is ablaze with rebellion. The country is embroiled in conflict, struggling to reclaim its freedom from the oppressive rule of King Edward I of England. Amidst this turmoil, one name rises to prominence: William Wallace. A fierce patriot, Wallace's name is on the lips of every Scotsman, a symbol of hope and defiance. His legacy will forever be etched in the national psyche of Scotland. Wallace was a loyal supporter of the deposed King John Balliol. The events leading up to the Battle of Falkirk are deeply entwined with the fall of Balliol, who had been ousted by Edward. Wallace, however, did not accept this subjugation of his country. He had already proven his mettle by achieving a spectacular victory over the English at the Battle of Stirling Bridge in 1297. Alongside his ally, Andrew Moray, Wallace delivered a devastating blow to the army of John de Warenne, leaving the English reeling. This victory cemented Wallace's place in history, not just as a fighter, but as the de facto leader of Scottish resistance. In October of 1297, Wallace led an army of around 3,000 men southward. This was no ordinary raid. Wallace's forces tore through the English countryside with savage determination, their path marked by flames and destruction. First, they ravaged the towns of Corbridge and Hexham, striking terror into the heart of England. Wallace's men, unruly and fierce, moved on to Cumberland and then to Carlisle, where they laid siege to the English garrison under Henry Percy. But Carlisle proved too tough to crack. Without the necessary siege equipment, Wallace's army was forced to settle for blockading the city. They continued to harass the English with constant raids, burning the lands surrounding Carlisle and forcing Percy's forces to endure. Despite the setback, Wallace's reputation for savagery grew as he plundered the lands and seized what he could. However, as winter began to creep in, Wallace was forced to retreat. The Scots, having achieved little in terms of territorial gain, nevertheless had enriched themselves through plunder and extortion payments, adding significantly to their war chest. On the surface, the raid may have seemed like little more than a series of minor victories. 3 major English strongholds, Carlisle, Newcastle, and Durham, remained in enemy hands. But the effects of Wallace's campaign were far more profound. The plunder not only bolstered the Scots' war chest, but it also boosted the morale of Wallace's army. His position as the leader of the national resistance was solidified, and the Scots nobility took note of his success. It wasn't just the physical gains, but the emotional toll of revenge that drove Wallace's campaign. Memories of the brutal sack of Berwick at the hands of Edward's forces spurred the Scots on in the dying months of 1297. Wallace was knighted by a major earl, perhaps even by Robert Bruce, the future King of Scotland. This official recognition from the nobility meant that Wallace had the backing of at least some of the Scottish elites. He was also elected Guardian of the Kingdom in the name of King John Balliol, a move that further cemented his status. However, this endorsement came with a price. Wallace's triumph at Stirling Bridge had provoked Edward I into action, and the English king was determined to crush the Scots once and for all in 1298. The English, despite their initial defeat at Stirling, had not been idle. The Battle of Stirling Bridge had failed to break their resolve. As the Scots continued their campaign of resistance, English nobles such as Robert Bruce and Robert Clifford began to take matters into their own hands. Robert Bruce rebelled, and Clifford launched his own raid into Annandale, showing that the English were not simply licking their wounds, but were preparing for a larger confrontation. By October 23, 1298, Edward had gathered a force of 30,000 men. This was no small feat. Some 18,500 troops had advanced north to relieve the castles at Berwick and Roxburgh. However, operations were temporarily paused when Edward, still stationed in Flanders, decided to wait for more reinforcements. This delay, although possibly prudent given the circumstances, gave Wallace the time he needed to solidify his own forces and prepare for the inevitable retaliation. Stirling Bridge had shown the world that the Scots would not easily bend. Edward I, known as Longshanks, was distracted. In 1297, he had been engaged in a prolonged conflict with the French, and his alliance with the King of the Romans had fallen apart. Meanwhile, in England, his own nobles were beginning to turn against him. The Earls of Norfolk and Hereford had mounted opposition to Edward's excessive taxation and military demands. Norfolk's famous defiance, when he refused to follow Edward on a military campaign in 1297, was a significant sign of unrest. Edward, in his typical style, responded angrily, declaring, "By God, Sir Earl, either go or hang." But Norfolk's retort, "By the same oath, O King, I shall neither go nor hang," showed that the king's power was not as absolute as he would have liked to believe. These internal conflicts only compounded Edward's challenges. His failed attempt to gather support for his campaign against the French had seen him abandon his position in Bruges for Ghent, where he had to stamp his authority on the local population. It was only when he received word of Wallace's continued resistance in Scotland that Edward began to focus on the task at hand. After negotiating a truce with Philip IV of France, Edward finally returned to England in March 1298, with renewed determination to subdue the rebellious Scots. Edward's return to England marked the beginning of a new phase in the war. By May 26, he had entered York, making his intentions clear by visiting the shrine of John of Beverley, a saint associated with battle. From there, he moved to Durham, where he took the banner of St. Cuthbert, another figure symbolizing English resistance to the Scots. With this sacred symbol in hand, Edward was ready to march north. Wallace, meanwhile, had assembled a force of 9,500 men, including 8,000 spearmen and 1,500 archers. Though a significant force, Wallace's army faced logistical difficulties as they prepared to face the English. Wallace strategically positioned his army near Selkirk Forest, preparing for what he knew would be an inevitable confrontation. The English army, having been delayed by Wallace's scorched earth tactics, finally began their advance toward Falkirk. Edward's army, numbering around 18,500 men, was composed of 10,500 foot soldiers, 2,200 cavalry, and 500 crossbowmen, led by Edward himself. The Scots, on the other hand, were greatly outnumbered, but fiercely determined to defend their land. On the eve of battle, Wallace moved his forces to the Torwood to cut off the English route to Stirling. The battle at Falkirk would soon unfold, a clash of titans that would determine the fate of Scotland's resistance. Wallace knew that this would be his greatest challenge yet, facing an overwhelming English force determined to crush his army and end the rebellion for good. Now pause for a sec. Join the front lines of history and power. Welcome to European Battle, where epic clashes, legendary warriors, and untold stories come alive. By subscribing and turning on notifications, you're not just joining a channel, but you're stepping into a world of thrilling battles, strategic brilliance, and jaw-dropping historical drama. From ancient empires to modern warfare, we deliver cinematic storytelling, expert insights, and exclusive content that will leave you breathless. Why subscribe? Unlock premium battle breakdowns and rare historical footage. Be the first to witness new episodes and live events. Join a passionate community of history lovers and strategy minds. Fuel your curiosity with facts, theories, and fierce debates. Don't just watch history, live it. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications to never miss a moment of the action. Your front row seat to Europe's greatest battles is just one click away. European Battle, where legends clash. The campaign of 1298 had begun with high hopes for Edward I, but things were far from smooth sailing. The English forces initially launched an assault on Durleton, a key Scottish stronghold. The attack was met with fierce resistance, and the English were quickly beaten back. Yet, this setback did not break the spirit of King Edward. His words of encouragement, sharp and full of resolve, reinvigorated his troops. Supplies soon arrived to bolster Durham's forces, and with their strength restored, the English finally took Dirleton after a prolonged siege. However, this minor success in Dirleton was marred by trouble brewing within Edward's own ranks. The English army, despite its victory, was suffering from internal turmoil. The arrival of a large supply of wine before any substantial food had reached the troops led to chaos. The Welsh contingent, known for their fiery nature, indulged liberally in the wine, their discipline rapidly disintegrating into drunkenness. The situation quickly spiraled out of control, with the Welsh soldiers clashing violently with one another, and even killing some priests who tried to intervene and calm the situation. This disorder threatened the integrity of the royal army. The fighting escalated until English men-at-arms were forced to step in, and in the aftermath, around 80 Welshmen were killed. This rebellion within the ranks was a serious blow to morale, and the Welsh, having caused so much disruption, withdrew from the main English force. Just as things seemed at their worst, a glimmer of hope arrived for Edward. The Earls of Dunbar and Angus, who had remained loyal to Edward, brought news that the Scots were positioned only 18 miles to the west. Wallace was reportedly planning to ambush the retreating English forces and raid their camp. With renewed vigor, Edward wasted no time in leading his army westward, camping at Linlithgow on July 21st. Tensions ran high within the English camp. Soldiers were ordered to remain ready for battle throughout the night, a precaution reflecting the sense of imminent danger. However, fate had one more misfortune in store for the king. Edward, while preparing for the next stage of the campaign, was wounded, not by the Scots, but by his own horse. A careless squire had failed to properly secure the horse, leading to Edward being injured in a freak accident. Though the injury was painful, the king quickly regained control of the situation, mounting his horse and proceeding towards Falkirk long before dawn. As Edward's massive army advanced toward Falkirk, the Scots were preparing for the inevitable confrontation. Wallace, ever the tactician, had positioned his forces on high ground to the south of Callendar Wood. His army, though outnumbered, was resolute and ready to face the English in battle. Wallace's 8,000 spearmen were arranged into 4 tightly packed circular formations known as skiltrons, a defensive tactic designed to counter the fearsome cavalry charges of the English. The strategic placement was brilliant. The circular formations would allow the Scots to defend from all directions, and the gaps between the skiltrons were guarded by Wallace's 1,500 archers. Although the Scots archers were vastly outnumbered by Edward's own longbowmen, their positioning gave them a fighting chance. Wallace had anticipated the charge of Edward's heavy cavalry and had made the necessary preparations to counter it. Edward's forces, numbering around 18,500, were a formidable sight. They were led by the elite of English nobility, including the Earls of Lincoln, Hereford, and Surrey, as well as Roger Bigod, the Earl Marshal of England. The right flank of the English army was led by Anthony Beck, the Bishop of Durham, and the king himself commanded his own battle. As the English army advanced, they were initially slowed by the marshy terrain of the battlefield. This unexpected obstacle halted their charge momentarily, but the English quickly reorganized and shifted their focus to the flanks of the Scottish formations. Edward's cavalry, though initially stymied by the marshy ground, soon adapted and attacked the Scottish flanks with a vengeance. Lincoln's battle, which outnumbered and outclassed the Scots' cavalry, quickly destroyed them. Many Scots cavalrymen were killed or driven from the field, and some may have dismounted and joined the spearmen in the skiltrons to continue fighting on foot. Regardless, the Scots cavalry was no longer a threat, and the English cavalry continued to circle the Scottish formations, probing for weaknesses. With the Scots cavalry neutralized, the English turned their attention to the heart of the Scottish defense, the skiltrons. The Scots had hoped to withstand the cavalry charges, but they had not anticipated the sheer devastation wrought by Edward's longbowmen. Thousands of arrows rained down on the Scots, their dense formations quickly being thinned out by the relentless missile fire. The Scots archers, caught between the advancing English cavalry and the deadly arrow volleys, were no match for the English onslaught. The archers were quickly overwhelmed, their numbers unable to withstand the force of the cavalry's assault. The Scots, despite their brave stand, were being torn apart. Despite their valiant defense, the Scots' formations were beginning to break down. The steady bombardment from the English longbowmen, combined with the fierce cavalry charges, began to create gaps in the Scottish lines. As these gaps widened, the cavalry found openings to penetrate the schiltrons, and the Scots began to falter under the relentless pressure. The collapse of the Scots' defensive formations was imminent. The Scottish spearmen, though still outnumbering the English cavalry, were unable to maintain their cohesion against the barrage of arrows and the overwhelming force of the English cavalry. At this critical moment, Wallace and a few of his inner circle managed to escape the disaster, retreating north. Wallace's retreat marked the end of the battle, and in many ways, the end of his brief moment as Scotland's guardian. The Scots, though decisively defeated at Falkirk, had not been crushed entirely. Wallace left behind a legacy that would haunt the English for years to come. His retreat was strategic, and as he withdrew northward, he ensured that Stirling was thoroughly gutted, leaving only the house of the Dominican friars intact. Edward, having claimed victory, made this house his headquarters. Wallace's defeat at Falkirk irreparably damaged his prestige, and his authority as guardian of Scotland crumbled. Though he resigned his post, he did not disappear from the stage of Scottish resistance. Wallace would serve as a diplomat, visiting the French court in 1299 and possibly traveling to Rome before returning to Scotland in 1303. Though Wallace was humbled, he remained a symbol of resistance for the Scots. His defeat at Falkirk did not mark the end of Scottish defiance, for in the years to come, a new champion would rise to challenge the English once more. Edward's victory at Falkirk was a triumph of tactical might, but it did not extinguish the spirit of Scotland's fight for freedom. The legend of William Wallace would continue to inspire future generations, proving that the Scots would never fully submit to the rule of the English. After immersing yourself in the thrilling, intense journey of the Battle of Falkirk, it's time to reward yourself with the comfort you deserve. The Respawn 900 gaming recliner is not just a chair. It's your personal haven of relaxation. Designed for comfort and versatility, this recliner features an adjustable leg rest and recline functionality, perfect for unwinding after a long day of watching epic stories unfold. Whether you're enjoying your favorite shows, gaming, or just relaxing, this chair offers the ultimate comfort. The Respawn 900 supports your posture with its ergonomic design, reducing strain on your back and neck, especially after hours of sitting. The adjustable footrest elevates your legs, promoting better circulation and easing tension in your lower body. Its cup holder ensures that your drink is always within reach, so you can stay relaxed without interruptions. This chair doesn't just help you rest, it actively enhances comfort, making it easier to recover physically and mentally after long periods of activity, much like how Wallace would have needed rest after every battle. For those of us aged 45 to 65, comfort becomes a priority, and with the Respawn 900, you're getting more than just a chair. You're investing in your well-being. This recliner is perfect for winding down after a busy day, providing the ideal balance of relaxation and support. Think about those long evenings when you want to dive back into history or escape into your favorite game. Wouldn't you want to do that in the ultimate comfort? The Respawn 900 offers just that, making it the perfect addition to your living room or home office. You've followed the heroic journey of William Wallace, and now it's your turn to enjoy a moment of comfort and relaxation. Treat yourself to the Respawn 900 gaming recliner, because you deserve the best after every adventure you embark on. Take the first step toward unparalleled comfort by clicking the link below. Every purchase you make helps support the channel, and we take a small commission through Amazon, so not only do you get an amazing product, but you also help us bring you more captivating content. So, what are you waiting for? Find the link in our bio and grab your Respawn 900 gaming recliner today. Your body will thank you, and we'll keep bringing you the stories that inspire and entertain. Click now and unwind like a true champion. But before you go, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more gripping tales like this. Click the notification bell so you're the first to know when we drop more intriguing stories that bring history to life. Follow us and be part of the journey as we dive deeper into the legends that